Hello and welcome to Microsoft Hates Greg. My name is Greg Deckler, and today we're going to be doing something a little different for this channel. We're going to be creating a data mart in the Power BI service. So I know this channel is mostly, tends to favor the DAX and Power BI desktop pretty heavily, but with the new data mart experience, you can build data sets now in Power BI in the Power BI service. So I figured I'd do a few videos about that. I started working a little more service content into this channel. Now, whatever you've heard about data marts, the fundamental thing you just need to understand is data marts are a way to create data sets in Power BI service. Period. It's really all you need to know. The way they work behind the scenes is that you create a data mart and it uses data flows to take data from source systems, put that into an Azure SQL database. So a fully managed instance of an Azure SQL database. And then it automatically builds out a data set for you from that database. So it's a little bit, may seem a little odd, but that's how it works behind the scenes. And that's really there's a lot of documentation on Microsoft's side about self-service this and blah all that. But really, it's just a way to create a data set in the Power BI service at the end of the day. All right, so the way you do this is I'm in my workspace right now I'm in a PPU work tenant, if you will. So you cannot create data marts in your my workspace. Okay. The only way to create a data mart right now is you have to create an actual real workspace. So we'll create one now. I've got one all set up that I was doing testing on, but we'll call this one MS Hates Greg as our workspace name. Make sure that we have premium per user turned on, and we'll go ahead and save this. All right, so now I'm in my workspace, and now when I go to new, I now have the option to create data marts, and yes, they are in preview. So if I go ahead and click on that, it's going to create it here. And I will say this about working in a PPU tenant and that, it does seem like things happen faster than in the shared service. So that's a benefit. I noticed that, especially I know people really complain about data flows and things like that, and the speed of them. There was an interesting tweet the other day about that. But I have found that they seem to do work better and work faster within within a PPU workspace rather than a pro shared services workspace. Of course, now that I'm saying that, creating this data mart is taking forever. Come on, data mart, let's go. You're holding up the works. And now we get, silence while this thing gets created. Of course, when I first did this the first time, I don't think it took nearly this long. And I've run out of things to talk about. I guess I should have saved the explanation for like how data marts work and all of that for this part of the video, where it's just sitting here waiting and I can't even tell exactly how close to being done I am. I'm not even sure. How far is this line supposed to go? Should it get to the T in data mart, or does it go beyond that? The world may never know. And of course, on this channel, I don't really do any editing of my videos whatsoever. So whatever gets recorded gets recorded. So again, what this is going to do once this thing finishes, I mean, I guess it does have to go out and provision an Azure SQL database, and all of that kind of fun stuff. But yeah, I wonder what happens if I click off of it. It still keeps going. Should we chance it? I don't think that line's moving. So there's all content, data mart. Data marts, there's my data mart. No data flows or anything like that. I click on it, it's still creating it. So I didn't just reset that whole process. Maybe I'll just have to start this video over once I've figured out how long this takes. Come on, I know this didn't take this long the first time. Oh, it seems like the line went a little further. It's to the R now. Still not to the T. Do. Let's go over here and we'll type in Datamarts. Power BI. This is Microsoft's introduction to Power BI. So this is kind of what I was telling you about was, okay, you have your source systems, your Datamart Power BI, and then you have your analysis, analytics, and that sort of thing. And I thought there was a good, is it this one? That compares data flows to Datamarts. I'm not sure why they do that. Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2, then your Datamart. This is your, so basically what's going on, the data flows, pipe information into Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2. Your Datamart sits there, and that's your Azure SQL database. I think Radicat had a good graphic on this. Datamart, data flows, data sets. Here we go. All right, so here we go. So there's your data flow. And then there we go. What is a data mart? So data flow into a data warehouse, Azure SQL DB, then it goes to your data sets. There you go. All right, let's check back. No, I don't want the book. Hey, our data mart's created. All right, cool. I hope not everything takes this long today. Okay, so what we can do then is we can start adding data. And so we just say get data. And I already have a SQL database that I use, sits on another machine of mine. So I'm going to pick a SQL Server database. And that FA Surf, oh boy. Now I got to look it up. Hang on just a second. Can't remember the name of that PC. I really should do more planning for these. Properties. Okay. FA Surf 100853. Yep. MS SQL Server Dev and AdventureWorks DW 2019. Okay, so now I already have a connection set up for this, but otherwise it would take you through the steps just like you do in Power BI Desktop, where it's going to ask you, okay, what do you want? How do you want to? What credentials do you want to use to authenticate to it? I'm using Windows credentials in this case because this is just a SQL server that's running on one of my computers I have here. And I have a data gateway set up and running on that computer so that I can access that local database from the service. Okay, so there we go. Let's click next. Hopefully I didn't mess anything else up, and hopefully this doesn't take as long as it did create that data mart. Okay, here we go. So this SQL database actually is the one I was using for mastering Power BI. So it's got all these BI dimension tables. So all these BI tables here. I'm just going to go ahead and click on a number of them. Product category, product subcategory, dim reseller. Yeah, we'll just go ahead and click on a bunch of these. And I don't need that. So there I got my fact tables. I got all my dimension tables. And it gives me my, my preview of the information that's in there and that sort of thing. Just like you would, I mean, it's really a nice interface and experience, just like when creating data flows in the service or creating Power Queries and that sort of thing. So now I can click on Transform Data. Again, it's amazing to me, how well they replicated the Power Query interface from the desktop into the service. It's pretty impressive overall. So I'm going to go through here and I'm going to do some data transformations on some of these tables. So I don't see anything that I really need to do in account, nothing I need to do in currency. So dim customer, let's see here. I think they have some stuff in here about like occupation. Yeah, I'm going to get rid of all these like Spanish and French type stuff. So I can go in here and move these columns. I'm just going to leave the English column names in here. If I want, you can do the full transformation options here. I'm just going to go through and remove these columns because I don't want them in my data mart. So, okay, that looks good. I don't think I have to do anything with date. Oh, yeah, I do. Yep. Get rid of these guys. If I wanted to rename the columns, I could, but I'm not going to. But I wanted to kind of give everyone an experience of actually building out a real data mart, from scratch, and how it's relatively easy. All right, I don't need that. Employee, I think there's some more of these. Emergency, let's see. I don't need the employee photo. That's just extra data I don't need. I can't really use it. Geography, Spanish region code, don't need those. That looks pretty good. Organization looks good. I don't need these Spanish and French product names. I don't need this photo. I need the English description, but I don't need any of these other descriptions. We'll get rid of those. All right, product category. Again, remove those columns. Product subcategory. Get rid of those. Motions. All right, we'll get rid of that stuff. That looks good. Dim reseller. I don't know if I have to do anything here. Doesn't look like it. Sales reason. That's fine. Sales territory. Don't need the sales territory image. All right, I think we're basically done with all of that transformation. Looks good. Now, but we can do more complex transformations. So for example, I think in the book Mastering Power BI, I did some queries that merged these three tables together into one. So we can do the same thing in Power BI service when we're building our data mart. So this one has a subcategory key somewhere in here. Product subcategory key, product subcategory key. It says it matched a bunch of the rows. So basically I'm going to do a left outer. So everything from product and just bring in the ones from subcategory that match. I can say okay. All right, so now I can expand it. And all I need is my English product subcategory name. I don't want to put the original on there. I don't need anything. And I do need product category key, because that's going to be the next one that we merge in. All right, so now what we can do is do another merge. I can pick my product category, and I want my product category key, should be all the way here. Product category key, left outer again. Match the same number of rows, click OK. All right, we'll expand out this column. And we need the English product category name. And we don't need this product category key any longer. So we'll get rid of that column. Okay. So now what I can do is, since these are already merged in now, I can disable the load for these two so they don't show up in my data mart. And I think we're all pretty well set to go. So let's go ahead and hit save here. Gonna do a little processing. This usually goes pretty fast, or it has in the past. We'll see. But yeah, now it's running. So it went out and created all the data flows for each of those, for all of that, basically, all those different tables and that. It created data flow for it and is bringing it into my data mart. So there it loaded up. So yes, that wasn't too bad. Loaded up quite a bit. And this is coming from it's going all the way from the internet and the clouds back to my home, computer, and then back up again, right? So there we go. We loaded, 60,000 from fact internet sales and another 60,000 from reseller. All right. So here is our data mart. All right. So now I was going to do, now it's not limited to just one single source, if you will. So hang on, I'm looking this up here again. I think it's here. All right, here we go. All right, so I can add, so in the book, I had a sales plan that was an Excel spreadsheet. So I can actually add that as well. So I can say get data. I can say Excel workbook. I can say C / users gdeclar OneDrive books mastering Power BI, and then AdWorks sales plan.xlsx. And again, I've already created a connection. Otherwise, I would have to specify my credentials, but I've been through this exercise before. So it already knows that I have a connection for it. So I can click next. And again, I can click on table 1 from my Excel spreadsheet. There's my sales plan. They transform data. You can see it adds it down here. We'll just rename this to be AdWorks Sales. AdWorks Sales Plan. There we go. Hit save there. Let's save again. There we go. I think the first time it saved my rename. This time it's saving it. All right, so this should be all the way. There we go. AdWorks sales plan. It just loaded. Didn't refresh those because it realized they didn't need refresh. And I was getting this error, like doing the same thing in my other one. But last time, if I just went back to, and again, they're in preview mode, people. So, bear with them. Well, okay, yeah, there we go. So there's a preview of my data, my salesman. So there we go. I mean, I've created basically a bunch, I've got all this table, all this data, and I really only have one thing to refresh, right? All I only have to do is go in here and I can go into say refresh history or settings. I can go to settings and I can say schedule refresh. I can just, turn on schedule refresh for my data mart and then set it up, and then all of those queries and everything are going to refresh auto magically. All right, so now the cool thing about this is it also automatically created a data set for that data mart. So this data mart corresponds to this data set. And I can do some interesting things with this data mart. So I can, this is the part that's a little bit, I'm not sure. I haven't really messed with queries that much, but this is like you can do SQL queries against this. It is an Azure SQL database. It has a visual query modeling feature that doesn't work very well, but I'm sure it'll get better. But this is kind of annoying. It really does not keep your tables and stuff. It really wants to do its own things with your tables in this view. So I'm gonna go through and select these so I can actually see them so that they're not super small. And hopefully drag them over here. Okay, there we go. That way I can actually see what's going on. All right, so let's see here. Where's my fact tables? Let's put, oh, still got them all selected. Select, got all my fact tables. There's my fact table for reseller sales. All right, so my geography, organization, dim date, that one's going to be common to both of them. I should just a little bit for, let's get rid of that. Promotion, I don't think I'm going to use that one too much. Sales reason, sales territory, currency. dim reseller. Okay, that should be okay. There's department in that. Okay, so now I can actually start, if I want to, I can start creating relationships. I know that dim date is going to be used for both of them. Let's focus on that right now. And then I'll clean all this stuff up here. But as you can see, the editing experience is pretty much the same as when you're sitting in the desktop. Now, the interesting thing about this is I don't need that. Let's get a little bit bigger here so you can see what's going on. My eyesight's not what it used to be. I have my date key, but I have my full alternate date key right here, and we can put that on our order date. So full alternate date key to our order date. And the interesting thing here is it always defaults the many to 1. It's not as smart as Power BI Desktop when it comes to figuring that sort of stuff out. I'm going to say assume referential integrity. Now I've got my one-to-many from my dim date table to my reseller sales fact table. I can do the same thing. I'm going to use order date again. Do that. One-to-many. Confirm. Oh, should have assume referential integrity. Okay, so we've got that one. I think we had a dim reseller, so that would be a good thing to probably put on our dim reseller table. Let's see what we have here. We've got, I'm assuming we have a reseller key. Yes, we do. We have a reseller key over here. Yes, we do. One-to-many. It's AdventureWorks, so we can assume referential integrity. Dim customer. I think this internet sales has a customer key. Yep, there we go. So customer key to customer key. One-to-many, assume. So I mean, you don't have to I don't have to drain this whole thing or whatever, but as you can tell, like we have a sales territory key and then we have a geography key and things like that. So if I wanted to, I could actually start, keep wiring this up. So I could do sales territory key to sales territory key, one-to-many, assume. And then I think there should be a geography table somewhere around here. Oh no, the sales territory table. This guy. I can get this one over here, put this guy over here. And let's see here. We have sales territory key to sales territory key. Oh yeah, that's not that isn't gonna work. Sales territory key, sales territory key. This is gonna be multiples. There's only gonna be one sales territory key. Probably don't want this. Delete it. Yep. Probably want sales territory key to this guy. That is going to be one-to-many. And then I will also want sales territory key. This one. Oh, it didn't like something. There we go. Let's try it again. Amazing how that works. All right, so we've got sales territory key tied into both of those. And eventually maybe I would make this cross filter in both directions, or I would use the cross filter function within DAX to do that. Oh, yeah, sorry, my dim product and dim promotion, dim employee. So let's get these in here as well. So dim product, I think that is in both of them. It should be product key, and then this one also has a product key. Yep, it does. Okay, so product key here goes here. One-to-many, referential, confirm. Yeah, it must be when you try to do the same thing too fast. All right, here we go. Now, one of these, it's either internet sales or I think it's reseller sales has the employee key. Yep, there it is. So we'll get our employee key, put it over here to employee key, one to many, assume, firm. Yeah, so there you go. I mean, so you've built out an entire data model. And I mean, this isn't, I don't know how long this video has been going, but most of it was waiting for the data mart to be created. But here I've got, I've basically essentially more or less built out the data model that I did for mastering Power BI, all within the service, which, is pretty cool that you can do that sort of thing. I can obviously clean this up a little bit and reorganize these tables and that. I don't do that currently because the minute you come back to this model view, it's just going to screw it all up again. In fact, let's see if we can, I can show that. I go back to my data view. I go back to my model view. Okay, so that's okay. But if I go back here, then go back to my data mart, and then go into my model view. Yeah, see, it messed it all up. So don't bother cleaning up your views and that sort of stuff. Maybe, I haven't really messed around with like I could just taking these tables, but it even messes things up where like if I collapse these views and things like that, if I come back to it, like I say, collapse, collapse, collapse. I'm trying to make this stuff a little cleaner. Yeah, well, it's all well and good, except you go out of, go back to the data mart, go back to the model, and it doesn't matter. But that's okay. All right, so that's how easy it is to create a data mart. And I think there's some advantages in this approach of landing all this data into a SQL Server database, and then having that build out a data set for you. So the data sets are completely synced within here. So this data set actually, if I go into it, right, it's going to have all my tables, all those relationships are defined. If I was to connect it to this from Power BI desktop, all those relationships would be there. It would all work. So it's pretty nifty in that regard. But again, like I said, I think there's some advantages. There's some advantages on the data flows aspect of it, since data flows can't connect to Power BI data sets, unfortunately, which would be kind of a cool feature. But they can connect to Power BI data marts because a data mart is really just a SQL Server under the hood. So I think in next video, that's what I'll be showing off is data flows connecting to data marts, and then I'll actually show kind of a use case for Excel. And I know, people are like, "Oh my gosh, Greg, what's going on? You're in the service, you're in Excel, you're not in Power BI desktop, you're not writing DAX." But no, not right now, but we'll get to it, right? Because in this data mart, right, I can actually sit here and say new measure, right? So I can actually write DAX in the service and create measures in that within my data mart, which really is in the data set. I can configure incremental refresh. So there's lots of options. We'll be kind of taking a look in the next few videos around more kind of service related topics and some of the more kind of beta features that are out there, just to show everybody what's coming. And just to prove that, I'm not always just bagging on Microsoft. All right. And some of the stuff they do is pretty cool. There's no doubt about it. I wouldn't be doing this if that wasn't the case. So hope everybody enjoyed this video, and I'll talk to you next time.